concern over the global outbreak of novel coronavirus.
Coronavirus is declared a global emergency nearly 1 month after the world learned of the new respiratory illness in China, with cases now right around the world, including right here in Toronto. The new designation by the World Health Organization comes after China announced a sharp rise in the number of people affected. 170 people killed, about 8,000 infected, and another 12,000 suspected cases. As Vicatobia explains, the outbreak has spread all across that country and to at least 18 others.
Hospitals in China are overwhelmed with new confirmed cases added by the hour. Despite strict containment efforts, the outbreak has now spread to every province in China and spilled beyond its borders, creating the potential for foreign outbreaks.
For all of these reasons, I'm declaring a public health emergency of international concern.
The expert panel recommended the head of the WHO take the extraordinary step to better coordinate resources, research, and measures to stop the spread of the pathogen, especially to places that might need the help.
We don't know what sort of damage this virus could do if it were to spread in a country with a weaker health system. We must act now to help countries prepare for that possibility.
Health officials are already seeing a troubling development in cases outside China. At least 4 suspected cases of person-to-person transmission in Vietnam, Japan, Germany, and now the U.S., where people who hadn't even been to China are now sick.
Our newly confirmed patient is a man in his 60s, as you heard, the husband of our first confirmed case.
This infectious disease doctor says the WHO designation won't change much.
The virus is still going to do what the virus is going to do. Everybody's going to keep on doing what they're doing.
The international emergency designation process was designed by the WHO in the aftermath of SARS. She says it may already be obsolete.
Things are radically different now. Okay, so much more communication, so much more coordination, people understanding how to respond to these things so much better. And so I think there's a sense that maybe the declaration has been left behind a little bit, that we don't actually need it.
As the number of hospital admissions increase, China attempts to put a brave face on its containment efforts, celebrating the discharge of recovered patients. Still no clear answer as to when this outbreak might peak. Vicatopia, CBC News, Toronto.
There are still just 2 confirmed cases of the coronavirus here in Ontario.
In terms of the 2 cases, the first one remains in hospital and is in stable condition. The second one remains at home in self-isolation and is feeling well.
Those 2 people, a husband and wife from Toronto, returned recently from the Chinese city at the epicenter of the outbreak. Public health officials say they've contacted the people who sat near them on the plane to let them know they should be watching for symptoms of the virus. Coronavirus test results are still pending for 27 people in Ontario. There's concern that the longer the outbreak goes on, the more impact it will have on the bottom line of some GTA businesses. Alicia Son joins us live from the Steeles and Midland area now. And Ali, the mayor will be there tonight with a message to keep supporting Chinese-Canadian businesses during the outbreak.
That's right. So Toronto Mayor John Tory will be at this banquet hall to show his support. The Markham Mayor will be out there to show his support at the Lunar New Year celebrations tonight. These politicians are showing face for the businesses that could really use the support right now.
I think at the moment, health is a major concern. I think business is secondary. Most people will be more worried about them catching it than losing a few dollars in sales.
While Chinatown is hardly deserted, some business owners and workers here have noticed slower sales.
Fewer pedestrians walking on the streets and fewer people dining in. More takeout, actually, more delivery service.
If this prolongs to a few months or half a year, I think most business will suffer, especially in the restaurant business, because they depend on a lot of people coming out for dinner.
If they're having issues, imagine having the virus epicenter in your restaurant name. Wuhan Noodle here in Markham has been dealing with non-stop prank phone calls all week.
And what are they calling to say?
They order strange things like the bad soup and some special virus and even though one is asked me to like shut down the store.
There's no bat soup on the menu. You can't order a virus. They just serve popular Wuhan-style dry noodles. And the annoying phone calls are one thing. Mean-spirited videos on Instagram like these are getting thousands of views and comments.
Yo, who's trying to catch that Wuhan virus though? Oh, jeez. Jeez!
How long has the business been open?
More than 2 years.
Oh, yes?
Yeah.
And is it busy?
Yeah, before it's busy.
Have you noticed the coronavirus affecting business?
Yeah, it's so the customer for now maybe just like less than half than before.
Perhaps a result of the vicious combination of social media and misinformation.
It may have been there when we were dealing with SARS, but now people take that misinformation, they take that anxiety, and they're able to pass it on through social media, creating even more concern in the community.
Markham Mayor Frank Scarpitti says the odd community event was canceled over the week, but for the most part, it's been business as usual. That's thanks to the confirmed case count remaining at just 2 people in Ontario.
Like, I would never fault anyone for taking what they perceive to be extra precaution. I get that and never fault anyone to do that. But you know, I just want to make sure that they're making these decisions and evaluations based on the right information and not misinformation.
Restaurants, in the meantime, will have to rely on their loyal customers until the hysteria dies down.
But there's no need for these kind of prank calls and negative message on the Google review. They don't need to come to the restaurant, but there's no need for them to like ruin their reputation, all these.
So not only is Wuhan Noodle dealing with prank phone calls, they're also getting prank Google reviews. But thanks to their loyal customers who report those fake reviews, Google's actually been taking them down. As you can imagine, Dwight, they are certainly looking forward to things getting back to normal.
Yeah, very sad they have to deal with that. Thank you, Ali. The last Air Canada flight from China is today. It's one of more than 20 airlines around the world now suspending or reducing service to and from the country. But for any Canadian citizens still in Wuhan and wanting to leave, Ottawa is sending an evacuation flight. Trouble is, that's not as easy as it sounds. Sasha Petrusik has more now from Beijing.
I just want to get more information.
There are Canadians sitting in Wuhan and waiting by the phone. What are they waiting for? Well, they're waiting for information from the Canadian government about when this announced airlift is actually going to happen. They believe they are on the list, but they don't know when it's going to happen, what they should be doing, whether it's going to be in the next 24 hours or perhaps the next week. No idea. The problem with these airlifts, and this is to get people out of the epicenter of this epidemic, a number of countries have gone through this. The United States and Japan and others, of course, have gone through, and they have successfully taken their citizens out. But in each case, there's been this bureaucratic dance that's had to happen, and that is that the central government here in Beijing goes ahead and approves these airlifts and works with the foreign governments to get people out and to approve the charters in. But there is resistance and red tape and bureaucracy at the local level and the provincial level. And in some cases, it has to do with the bureaucrats there not really being happy with this idea of, the image of foreigners jetting off to safety abroad while this epidemic rages across China and especially in Wuhan itself. So Canadian officials will have to deal with that as well before they can actually announce when this airlift will happen. And probably they will not know if everything's going to go ahead as planned until the very last moment. They may, in fact, also have to wait for the plane to come in and be called in once they have all of the green lights, and that could take some time. Sasha Petrusik, CBC News, Beijing.
You can find all the latest on the coronavirus outbreak online at cbcnews.ca. Still ahead, thousands of cruise ship passengers stuck on board after a woman became ill and fears of the coronavirus spread. We'll have that story for you coming up at 6:30. The family of Tess Ritchie was in the courtroom today as the man accused in her death listened to the case against him. Kalen Schlatter is charged with first-degree murder in the 2017 killing of Ritchie. Adam Carter has more.
Members of Tess Ritchie's family wiped away tears in court today as Crown Attorney Beverly Richards gave her opening address. Richards told the jury this case is about a young woman who was sexually assaulted and brutally strangled by a man she just met. Schlatter sat stoically at his lawyer's table as the evidence unfolded. Ritchie was last seen in November of 2017 after a night out at the Church Street nightclub Cruise and Tangos. Her mother found her body nearby a few days later. It was discovered the day before what would have been her 23rd birthday. Police say Ritchie met Schlatter on the street after she and a friend left the bar. Richards told the jury they will seek security camera footage of Ritchie and Schlatter together. She also said DNA testing was conducted on Ritchie's clothing after her body was found. Tests revealed that semen and saliva found on her clothes were a match for Schlatter. Richards said the man who left Tessa's body in a heap at the bottom of a stairwell was Kalen Schlatter. The Crown also revealed that after he was arrested, Schlatter was placed in a holding area with some undercover cops. Richards told the jury that Schlatter spoke almost non-stop with one of the officers. Court heard Schlatter boasted that he has slept with over 40 girls and that girls begged to sleep with him. Richards said Mr. Schlatter also told police that he likes a challenge and sometimes you have to push the boundaries with women to see where it goes. Most of court's afternoon session was spent going over photos around the area where Ritchie's body was found. Her sister is expected to start testifying tomorrow. Adam Carter, CBC News, Toronto.
It appears Peel police have made an arrest in the murder of an innocent man who was killed as he was driving on the 410 last year. Tomorrow, Peel Chief Nish Duyapa will speak about 3 shootings that took place in just 10 days in Mississauga in Brampton in November. One happened on the 410 and killed Jason Ramkishan. Investigators said the shooters mistook him for someone else, adding they believe a man shot just over a week later, also on the 410, was the target the gunmen were actually seeking. We will have full details on this tomorrow right here on CBC Toronto News. It is being called a once-in-a-decade drug bust. Ontario Provincial Police arrested several people after a 9-month investigation. The arrests happened in both Ontario and Quebec. Kimberly Molina has more.
The first series of raids happened southwest of Toronto in Burlington and Stony Creek, Ontario. Dozens of officers were involved. A day later, officers executed search warrants in the Ottawa area and Gatineau, Quebec. Police say the raids targeted individual high-level suppliers who sold to mid-level drug dealers and street gangs. But what makes this seizure so important is not only who the men are, but how pure the drugs are. Officers seized a large quantity of cocaine, methamphetamine, ecstasy, and cannabis.
I've never seen quality like this ever. In the late 90s, it was rare to find cocaine above 20% purity on the street. And now you're seeing cocaine this is in the high 90s. Some of this is 98% pure cocaine.
Donnelly says these drugs likely came across the border, and they would have been resold many times before reaching the streets.
It would be stepped on by each level that buys it. It would be cut in half and then sold, and then cut in half again and sold until it reaches 25, 30%, and then sold on the street. So each kilogram of cocaine turns into 3-4 kilograms.
The 12 accused men range in age from 18 to 51. They're charged with everything from possession of property obtained by crime to trafficking in a controlled substance. Kimberly Molina, CBC News, Ottawa.
Colette, you've been so positive all January, but I hear you're getting negative on us.
I don't even mean to, Dwight. Sometimes it just happens. Here we are. Take a look. These are temperatures back closer to seasonal for like a daily high. I know we're getting now into the evening hours, but at -2 in Mississauga, Hamilton -4, St. Catharines -3, and Oshawa as well at -3. And then you factor the winds in, and yes, it's feeling a little cooler with that wind chill at -10, minus double digits there for Hamilton. The winds are actually going to ease up a little bit overnight tonight. So even though the temperature is going to drop a few more degrees, the wind chills will likely stay around that -10 into tomorrow morning. Speaking of those winds, yes, coming in off the lake, and because of that kind of easterly flow that we're primarily seeing, it does build the cloud deck. So never mind the sunshine from yesterday. Today into the clouds, and we'll see quite a bit of cloud cover into tonight as well. Now tomorrow morning we may get a few little sunny breaks before those clouds thicken back up again, so enjoy them if we see them, because we'll see the clouds. And not only that, with a bit of a trough pushing through, just a weak upper disturbance, we may have some scattered flurries coming up as well. There could be some isolated ones tonight, but primarily we'll see some scattered flurries into tomorrow afternoon. That risk is there. I'm not talking about accumulation. It's very, very light in nature. There is more to come though into the weekend, but again, another weak system. Not going to be weak in terms of temperatures and what it's going to do to those by the time we get to Monday. More on that coming up. Tonight, -7. Tomorrow going up right to the freezing mark, Dwight.
Thank you, Colette.
I'm not negative.
We know you're not. Many public elementary school teachers went on strike today as talks between their union and the government resumed this week for the first time in a month. Even though the lines of communication seem to have been reopened, there doesn't appear to be a resolution in sight. Nellie Nanowski with the details.
Every other sign at this picket line in Durham was about the importance of special education.
I have several students in my class with special needs, and they do not have support, and we have had our CERT teams fight for support for them, and the ministry has just said there is no funding for that.
We've seen a number of our special education resource teachers lose those positions.
These teachers also want to maintain transparent hiring practices and preserve the current kindergarten model. Education Minister Stephen Lecce has publicly committed to the full-day kindergarten program, but the union says it hasn't received that in writing.
And the silence is just really taking us to a point of frustration, and it's starting to build this tension between government and our education system.
Both Lecce and Premier Doug Ford have repeatedly said they support teachers. Their unions are the problem.
Our message to the educator and to the parent is that if the case is that they need more investment in class, that they want more support for students, I agree, and I'd urge them to turn to their union leadership, who is making the case that additional incremental dollars actually should go into compensation.
We are our unions. We elect those leaders.
A press conference today organized by teachers from different boards stressed you can't be for one and against the other.
It is a terrifying and brave and courageous thing to do, to go on strike. But when we're told that we're only out there because we've been bullied into this action, it's quite frankly insulting.
If a deal isn't reached by tomorrow, elementary teachers say they'll walk off the job again. And some parents who joined the teachers on the picket line today say they don't mind.
You know, a few days of inconvenience on a strike is nothing to how bad it will get if an already underfunded system is cut back further.
Another strike for Tuesday is also planned. That's for public high school teachers in New York and Halton. Natalie Nanowski, CBC News, Toronto.
The Ford government says it is moving to bring some rate relief to electricity customers in Ontario.
This report also shows forecasting additional funding of $1.6 billion to keep electricity bills stable and protect Ontarians' bills from the mistakes of the past. Liberal strategy.
Finance Minister Rod Phillips says in all the government will spend $5.6 billion to keep electricity prices stable. He made the announcement Thursday as the government provided an update on its finances. The provincial government said last March it would continue to subsidize hydro rates and hold any increases to the rate of inflation. Phillips says the government will pay for the increased subsidies with new revenues from job growth and home sales. Coming up after the break, why La Senza is in trouble ahead of Valentine's Day and the shopping season. It appears the lingerie chain isn't paying its bills and suppliers are trying to force it into bankruptcy. More on that coming up next.
The weather update is brought to you by Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand. It's hard to stop a train.
One person is in hospital tonight after a fire in a Toronto community
Knock off
housing
there.
building.
The winds, they will
Firefighters
gust it.
were called to the Queen and Broadview area just before 6 this morning. They rescued a victim from a unit on the 3rd floor. Paramedics say that person suffered serious injuries as a result of smoke inhalation. Another popular retail chain appears to be in financial trouble. La Senza was founded in Quebec and now has more than 300 stores around the world. But some suppliers claim the company owes them a lot of money. And as Jacqueline Hansen tells us, they are trying to push the chain into bankruptcy.
On Instagram, La Senza is gearing up for Valentine's Day. But behind the scenes, things are heating up in a far different way. Some suppliers for the retailer claim it's not paying its bills and are asking a U.S. judge to force La Senza into bankruptcy.
So they're trying to push the company in with the sole purpose of getting their money back.
Founded in Quebec, La Senza has been selling lingerie to young shoppers for almost 30 years. The company was bought by the U.S. owner of Victoria's Secret in 2007, but when Victoria's Secret sales slumped, it sold off La Senza to a private equity firm. Part of the deal was that the new owner would prove it could pay for future merchandise, but that allegedly hasn't happened. According to court documents, one of La Senza's suppliers, MGF, also claims La Senza owes over $41 million in payments for goods, and that MGF demanded La Senza stop selling its goods and return them, but it says La Senza has not done so.
You know, where there's smoke, there could be some fire. And this in itself is going to cause a panic with any other La Senza suppliers who may not be in this position to sort of pique their interest now and either ask for cash up front or charge La Senza more because they're ensuring they're receivable. So either way, it's not a good thing.
CBC has reached out to La Senza and the firm that owns it for a response, but we haven't heard back. Regardless, the future is uncertain for yet another well-known retailer in malls across this country. Jacqueline Hansen, CBC News, Toronto.
Imagine driving on the DVP or the Gardiner at night without any lights on the expressways. Well, believe it or not, Toronto City Council debated turning off the lights back in 1996, and it's the topic of this week's Throwback Toronto. This week in 1996, Toronto City Council was in the midst of a budget crunch. And in order to cut costs, there was a proposal to turn off the lights on the city's 3 expressways, the Don Valley Parkway, the Gardiner, and the Allen.
And I think that Metro Council will be making the decision, if it approves this, to simply say that children's and services to seniors are more important than having lights, on a highway.
It would have saved $400,000 a year, but there was opposition from other councillors, the Insurance Board of Canada, and of course, drivers.
Makes no sense.
Why not?
Because human safety comes, first.
Bad idea.
We'll
die before we get home. Yeah, there's enough accidents as there is already.
Quite frankly, we're very worried about it as some people who are concerned about safety and accidents. We think it's a big mistake.
It's just a catastrophically stupid decision. People are going to get hurt. It's going to be unsafe, and potentially we're going to be sued right down to our shoes.
In the end, council decided safety was paramount and the lights stayed on. It's Britain's final day as part of the European Union. Brexit officially goes into effect tomorrow.
Very much a reason to celebrate. We're happy. We're going to get our own constitution back.
Millions are celebrating the departure, but there are protests as well, with people waving EU flags, calling the move a mistake. We'll take you to London right after the break.
Welcome to your Toronto newsroom. Good evening. I'm Mike Wise.
It's official. Amid growing concerns about the fast-moving spread of the coronavirus in China and beyond, today the World Health Organization declared the outbreak a global health emergency.
The main reason for this declaration is not because of what is happening in China, but because of what is happening in other countries. Our greatest concern is the potential for the virus to spread to countries with weaker health systems and which are ill-prepared to deal with it.
Earlier today, China announced a sharp rise in the number of people affected, 170 killed, about 8,000 infected, and an additional 12,000 suspected cases. The coronavirus has already infected more people in China than SARS did. At least 18 other countries now have confirmed cases, with evidence of person-to-person transmission raising more concern. WHO officials say a vaccine is in development. Now, questions about Ottawa's plans to bring Canadians home from the Wuhan area were raised during a stop by the Prime Minister at an auto parts plant in Brampton today. Justin Trudeau says the timing of a Canadian evacuation flight is still up in the air, but he insists the health and safety of Canadians, whether on that flight or those they may rejoin here in Canada, remains paramount.
We are looking at giving the support we can to people who need it. Obviously, it involves working with the Chinese government, it involves looking at what partners around the world are doing. We're working very closely with the WHO to ensure that Canada is being responsible in its approach.
Countries around the world are now quarantining people returning from Wuhan to prevent any further spread of the virus. In Italy, officials took precautions a big step further. About 6,000 people were held on board a cruise ship docked near Rome because of a Chinese passenger who is ill. The woman from Macau, not Wuhan, boarded the ship 5 days ago and then developed fevers and breathing problems. She and her husband were held in isolation on the ship until test results came in late today, proving she did not have coronavirus. Hours after that announcement, Italy confirmed its first 2 cases of the virus to Chinese tourists. The country has also closed air traffic to and from China. The campaign and the referendum are long over. The debates and resignations are history. Now Britain is about to Brexit. Tomorrow at 11 p.m. London time, its official departure from the European Union will arrive. Aaron Collins has more now from London.
Celebrate Brexit with this historic, memorable benefit of Brexit tea towel.
It's Brexit Eve in the UK, and here in London it's a tale of 2 flags. You can see the Union Jacks flying that represent the pro-Brexit crowd here, a group that's waited years for this moment when after 47 years the United Kingdom will be out of the European Union, a moment to be celebrated for millions here.
Very much a reason to celebrate. We're happy, we're going to get our own constitution back, we're going to take back control, and my children are going to have a future.
Of course, not everyone is in the mood to party. Look a little closer and you can see that many here in the UK aren't happy to be leaving the EU, and they've brought their own flags here to a protest outside Parliament. Their message, leaving the EU, is a mistake.
I am seeing in business, across many different sectors, we're already seeing companies move out of the UK to Amsterdam, Frankfurt and Paris. I think what remains now is A, what is the trade deal going to be? B, what does that mean for the people who are living in and out of Europe who are British and non-British mixed families? And C, how will business in the UK respond to being in an international environment?
But Brexit is on. The UK will officially leave the EU tomorrow night at 11 p.m. London time. Now, there will be parties across the UK to mark the day, but when the party's over, the hard work of figuring out what life after Brexit is begins. Job 1, negotiating a trade deal with the EU. Now, that task needs to be completed in just 11 months, and the clock's already ticking. Aaron Collins, CBC News, London.
The impeachment trial of Donald Trump is getting set to move on to its next phase, but just what that will be hasn't been decided yet. There could be a lot more legal and political wrangling, or the U.S. Senate could move quickly to vote on whether to acquit or convict the president. Alison Northcott with the latest now from Washington.
This is the final day of questions from senators, and one big one continues to loom over all of it: whether the Republicans will agree to the Democrats' demand to call more witnesses.
Maybe we should call Ambassador Bolton. If we're serious about the truth, maybe we should call him.
She's talking about Trump's former national security advisor, John Bolton, who in an unpublished book reportedly appears to back up the allegation that the president tried to pressure Ukraine to investigate a political rival by withholding military aid. Trump's defense team says there is no proof of a quid pro quo, but yesterday Trump lawyer Alan Dershowitz offered this argument.
And if a president does something which he believes will help him get elected in the public interest, that cannot be the kind of quid pro quo that results in impeachment.
Today, Democratic Senator Adam Schiff called that defense absurd and dangerous.
It is the normalization of lawlessness, but that is what they've had to resort to as the evidence has continued to pile up of the president's guilt.
Trump's lawyers continued their arguments against the whole impeachment process and the timing during an election year.
We think the basis upon which this has moved forward is irregular, to say the least. But I do think it complicates the matter for the American people, that we are literally at the dawn of a new season of elections.
Democrats say they still hope to convince enough Republican senators to ask for more witness testimony in a vote that's expected tomorrow. Allison Northcott, CBC News, Washington.
After a look at your weather, could this robot be a game changer for kids with brain injuries?
So it's good to have a tool where a little buddy, and he can learn with the robot, and it's exciting for the opportunities that can come about. Yeah.
What do you think? Do you think the robot can be your little buddy?
Yes.
The U.S. National Solar Observatory's new solar telescope in Hawaii has captured the most detailed look ever at the surface of the sun. The bubbling you see is superheated plasma on the sun's surface. As it hits about 6,000 degrees Celsius, it rises to the surface and then sinks as it cools. The molten cells shown here are about half the size of Quebec. The sun's magnetic eruptions can lead to power blackouts and disrupted satellite transmission to Earth. Does it have something to do with this January we've been having?
Yeah, it is January, isn't it? Those are incredible images, by the way. I'm going to talk to you about some of the heat we've been seeing. Not quite that extreme, but let's just look at 2020 so far and where we're sitting on the 30th day of this January. All of these days on my calendar where you see orange, here's your legend. It's above average in terms of the daily high. So we hit above average on all of these days. Only the days in blue were we actually below seasonal. So 3 of 30, 27 days we've been above seasonal. My forecast for tomorrow is going to put us above seasonal too. So we're going to end up with 28 of 31 days for this month. Yeah, that's something to kind of digest, and it's looking mild, boy oh boy, into February. Let me show you the long-range forecast. You're not going to believe the temperature for Monday. The temperature currently, though, -2. We're sitting at -2 for Toronto, but -4 for Hamilton. Some cooler air there, and even St. Catharines at -3. A bit of a wind chill in a few cases, but the winds have really been kind of letting up, so they're not that significant. Overnight tonight, we are going to feel like about -10 as we go towards those morning hours. Quite a bit of that cloud cover. We'll see some breaks in it through the overnight, and then really probably mostly a gray day tomorrow. We could get lucky with some sunny breaks early on, and then clouds and some scattered flurries, especially into the afternoon hours, but really just that, some widely scattered flurries. It's pretty weak system that's kind of pushing through. Then we look ahead towards Saturday. Again, we could start off with a bit of sunshine or some breaks in there, or a mix of sun and cloud, and then the clouds are going to build back in. And it looks like more so late Saturday. I know this looks very expansive, but really this is very light precipitation, bit of a mix, maybe some freezing drizzle or some showers in there with wet flurries pushing through Saturday night into Sunday. Into cottage country, maybe 2 to 5 centimeters, but for the city, I would think it'll be negligible in terms of what we're going to see. Tonight, there are your cool temperatures and a bit of a wind chill on top of that. May see some isolated flurries. Better chance into tomorrow afternoon, and those highs trying to make it just up to the freezing mark, just a little below for Markham. but let me show you what happens this weekend. So this next system that's coming through, all right, maybe Saturday morning we get some sun, like I said, then it's kind of gray with that light precipitation, but southwesterly winds Sunday into Monday means Sunday's high goes to 3. Monday, we may get even warmer than that 6, and we may be actually able to couple some sunshine with the mild temperatures. Dwight, we don't often get treated to that.
Oh, the skiers are hating it. Thank you, Colin.
I know. I'm sorry, they can tune me out.
A Toronto organization is trying out robots as companions for children who could use a friend. A pilot project is starting to bring robots into the homes of ill children who can't go to school. Lorenda Redekop explains how it works.
Hello, my friend. My name is Zimbo.
This little robot and others like it will go out to families like this one.
It's a pleasure to meet you, Ethan.
This is the first time 7-year-old Ethan Hayes and his big sister Chloe are meeting Zembo.
I love cookies. Do you like cookies too? Yes.
Their little friend also tests their math skills. Ethan and Chloe don't always agree on the answer.
1, 2, 1, 2. Liam will add 1 large egg.
Ethan was diagnosed with brain cancer a year ago. It's been a tough time. 5 surgeries, radiation treatments in the U.S., chemotherapy at sick kids. Plus, he couldn't go to school.
He just is a warrior, and he got through the year. So we're happy that he's back at school last week, and it's exciting about this robot and the opportunities for other kids in the same situation.
The charity High Lifeline Canada already has services for families going through a serious illness and thought robots could fill an extra need.
Perhaps help a child who might be home from school for a long time, might not be able to see his friends or family because of isolation. Hopefully help him with his homework and just be around, tell him stories, play games, dance.
It's our solo time.
Chloe's a fan of the dancing, and you never know what a robot might say next.
Shake your butt with me. Shake your butt with me.
He seems to get the thumbs up from the whole family.
It's good to have a tool where a little buddy, and he can learn with the robot, and it's exciting for the opportunities that can come about. Yeah.
What do you think? Do you think the robot can be your little buddy?
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you want him to come back?
Mm-hmm.
Zambo's definitely welcome to return.
Anytime.
Anytime Zambo wants to come back, he can come.
Anytime.
Lorenda Redekop, CBC News, Toronto.
We are under just 6 months away from the start of the 2020 Olympic Games in Tokyo, and after the break, will some runners have an unfair advantage because of their shoes?
The Vaporflies were the answer because, they're often worth, 2 minutes in a marathon, and if I can get 2 minutes, then I can be competitive.
Those Nike kicks have helped marathon runners break records. Now they could soon be treated the same as performance-enhancing drugs. That story next.
Here's Leon. Sinclair's in the middle of the field. Christine Sinclair! She just broke the record! 185 career goals, Christine Sinclair! She's humble. She's a leader. She's a legend.
Oh, yes, she is. An amazing accomplishment for our Canadian soccer star, Christine Sinclair. Her 185th goal, the most career goals scored by any soccer player in history ever, pushing her past the previous record holder, Abby Wambach of the U.S. Sinclair herself is marking the moment with modesty, but former teammates and coaches are striking a very different tone.
Just nice to get it out of the way in the opening game, so now that we can focus on getting better, improving, and qualifying for the Olympics.
Legend on and off the field. I'm out of words.
I think everyone in Canada knows now it's achievable. Canadians can.
Yes, we can. It came as Team Canada played St. Kitts and Nevis. Canada won the game 11-0. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau also tweeted his congratulations to St. Clair. The international body that governs track and field is considering a new ban, not on performance-enhancing drugs, though, on a shoe. Marathon runners who wear Nike Vaporflies have been smashing records, but some say the shoe offers an unfair advantage. Jamie Strachan explains.
The Nike Vaporflies are on a whole different level.
Canadian marathoner Reid Coolsaet has competed in 2 Olympics. He knew that if he wanted to compete in Tokyo this summer, he had to switch to the Nike Vaporfly.
The Vaporflies were the answer because, they're often worth, 2 minutes in a marathon. And if I can get 2 minutes, then I can be competitive.
Is it the shoes? No. The industry is known for its hype and hyperbole, making promises about shoes that will change your life. But these are different.
I can't think of anything else in my lifetime that's had a bigger impact on performances in running. Over the last 2 years, basically every road running record that I can think of has been broken.
The numbers don't lie. The fastest men's and women's marathon finishes ever were run in the Vaporflies. In fact, in the last 6 major world marathons, nearly all of the podium finishers wore the shoes.
So what makes this shoe different is that
the sole of the Vaporfly is a curved carbon plate surrounded by thick ultralight foam. The plate keeps your foot from bending and losing energy.
And you've got this massive layer of foam that is compressing and giving you energy back with every step.
Other companies have been unable to keep pace, and now World Athletics, which governs international running, may limit or ban the shoe, a piece of equipment some are calling a form of technological doping.
And I'm really struggling with just what is the logical step here?
This Triathlon magazine editor says innovation is important, but wonders if these shoes go too far.
People have always talked about the purity of running. Anyone can get into it. All you need is a pair of shoes. Now we're starting to say maybe that's not possible.
For Reid Coolsaet, with an Olympic berth on the line, it's an easy choice.
I hope the Vaporfly gives me that edge.
The sport's governing body will decide within days if that edge is a fair one. Jamie Strachan, CBC News, Toronto.
Out on the fringe of an industrial town in northern England, a futuristic farm is producing tons of herbs. The operation has replaced farmers with grow technicians and has vastly higher yields in as little as half the time. It's known as vertical farming, and it's seen as one solution in a world that is losing farmland to climate change and expanding cities. Here's a look at how it's done.
So these are recently out of germination. They've spent 6 to 7 days in germination, 7 days on, and they will come to this stage. 28 days we try and have turnaround. Normal field, probably at least double that, so about 56. From the iPad I can control the lights, basically the light intensity. Here we have full light. We can turn that down to low light, which would be maybe sunrise or sunset. Well, like I say, stormy days, also the different seasons. Obviously with it being winter now, it's darker longer than it is lighter, whereas we don't have that issue here. It's light 365 days a year.
It's all about resource optimization. Anywhere, we could put it on the moon. This will be within meters or miles of where it is used up, processed, eaten, rather than having to flown in, imported, or trucked for hundreds of miles in refrigerated units.
That's the name of this after-school youth group that got a special visit today from
The Chief of Police.
I'm Greg Ross. I'll have that story coming up.
There was a special guest today at a Toronto after-school program believed to achieve is run by former boxer Spider Jones. He's doing his part to try and build bridges between community leaders and underprivileged children. Greg Ross has more on who the special visitor was today.
For the past decade, Spider Jones has been trying to make life better for underprivileged kids in Toronto.
Because let me tell you something, down here in these areas, the lure of the streets is huge.
His after-school youth program, believed to achieve, operates out of an apartment building near Jane and Wilson. Jones is here almost every weeknight working with kids aged 7 to 18.
He's the best. He's the best. And he's friendly.
He's always joking around with you guys?
Yes.
Is he funny at least?
Yes.
What do you think of that guy right there?
I don't know. A madman.
In addition to being a role model and a friend, he provides them with the kinds of things they can't always get at home.
Well, we feed the kids
Every day.
every day.
And they also get some help with their schoolwork.
And if they're having problems with math or reading or writing, spelling anything, we mentor them because you don't want a young person to get disillusioned. And when you're having a tough time in school or at home, you become disillusioned.
But today was a little different, with the chief of police dropping in for a special visit.
Well, the main reason is that I'm here is to keep a check on Spider.
But also to build his own relationships with the kids.
It's critical that we do things to strengthen the relationships when there isn't a critical moment. A lot of people are used to police responding when there's a crisis. That's not really the time to develop and build relationships. It's those moments of calm.
Believe me, we have been working on that for years, building up a relationship with police officers.
Jones says the key is for community leaders to start engaging with underprivileged kids at a young age and then continue to support them right into adulthood.
You can light a flame, but you have to nurture that flame to keep it going.
Greg Ross, CBC News, Toronto.
Great program. Coming up, get ready for some crunchy, smoky, and tender goodness. This Iraqi-inspired spa will make your mouth water. We'll take you to Hamilton after the break.
When you come in the shop, you've only got one option, chicken kebab. My name is Ronnie Shamoon. I'm the owner of Ronnie's. We're a restaurant located in Stony Creek, east end of Hamilton. We like to think this is the epicenter of the kebab. I'm a Syrian from Iraq. The first thing that pops in my mind about, thinking about food from back home is cooking meat over charcoal. And that's what I wanted to do. Just have a place that we can just dedicate and obsess about making really, really good chicken kebab. A lot of that has to start with the yogurt that we make in-house. We use it two different ways. We use it as a marinade for the chicken, and it also goes into our sauce. It's one of the secrets that make the chicken taste so good. The two secrets that we have are basically make your own yogurt and cook it over charcoal. One of the most popular plates is the chicken kebab plate. You get a couple of cold sides, all made from scratch, and then it's accompanied with our version of biryani rice and topped with chicken. What we're looking for when somebody takes a first bite is they taste the savoriness, but right away it's balanced by that acidic yogurt. Whatever ends up on the customer's plate has to be made properly from scratch. And that's the philosophy that we're trying to adapt here.
I like your philosophy, brother. Oh, sorry. Back to the news.
Those segments.
Making me hungry on this Thursday. So, tonight, minus.
Yeah, we are looking at temperatures still above seasonal,
yeah.
but it's going to be cool. -7. There's going to be a bit of a wind, so it'll feel like -10. And getting into maybe some breaks in the morning, but quite a bit of cloud cover and a grayer day, especially into the afternoon, and some scattered flurries certainly possible out there as well. The high right around 0, so that gives us yet another day where our daytime high is going to be above seasonal this month.
All right, tomorrow we're going to talk Super Bowl. That's our show for tonight. Thank you for joining us. Mike Wise has you covered at late night after the National.